Good morning. Welcome back to another episode of the Just Jamie podcast. And today's episode is going to be a little bit different because I'm just doing a quick intro before I turn it over to my niece and her classmates for an interview with a woman from the Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center. And the interview is about human trafficking. I didn't realize that January was Human Trafficking Awareness Month, and blue is the color associated with it. So I wore as blue a blue as I could find. But part of their AP history project was to investigate human trafficking. And I think it's such an important topic that when she asked if she could share the interview on my YouTube channel, I jumped at the chance, not just because I can't say no to Erin, but because it is super important and why not use social media for good. So I'm going to have all the important links in the show notes in case you want to get in touch with the center. But I certainly learned a thing or two. It's not exactly what I thought. Human trafficking kind of takes on some different forms. It's not just the obvious. It's not just happening at the border. So if you've got some time, watch with your friends, your family, your spouse, and hopefully you can learn a few things too. So take it away, ladies, and thanks again for allowing me to share it. Thanks.
We're taking AP World History right now, and part of our January curriculum, our teachers teaching us about human trafficking since it's Human Trafficking Awareness Month. So she came up with this awesome project idea to basically figure out any type of way where we can spread awareness, and she kind of makes it based on their creativity and the originality of the project. So we've been brainstorming different ideas and different ways that we can kind of turn this into a project. And we thought that, either speaking to someone in an organization, getting questions that we can show to our class and show that we had a real conversation with would be a great idea.
Well, that is a great idea. I love that because in high school, I'm also from New Jersey. I went to Cherry Hill East. So I didn't really know what human trafficking was until I got into college, when I started getting into more human rights stuff. That's when I really became interested in it. And then I found STAC through another organization, and it's really just been amazing from there. And I've learned so much, and I can't wait to teach you guys more about it. So thank you so much. I'm really
excited. Thank you. Excited. To start, we kind of just wanted to ask for a general overview of kind of how you got into this stuff, what your college major was or what you're pursuing as a career, and how you kind of became interested in this job.
So I started at Florida State in 2021. I was studying exercise physiology at first, so I switched to human development and family sciences. But I was always really interested in criminology. I started getting more into human rights, policy making, and I started taking more electives around that. I got an internship with the Commission on the Status of Women and Girls, which is based in Tallahassee, Florida. And that was an organization based on creating and reviewing policies for just the well-being of women and girls in our community and in the state of Florida. And then I came across STAC again, and I was like, you know what? This might be a really good opportunity to learn more about the different issues that women and girls specifically face in our community. And Tallahassee is a huge hub for human trafficking, unfortunately, just due to its proximity in the state and how I-10 runs right through Tallahassee. But January last year, during Human Trafficking Awareness Month, was really when I started with STAC. I wrote an article, and it was about how college students are more susceptible to human trafficking, being young and naive. You just don't know. So that's kind of how it started.
That's so cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
What does your day-to-day work life look for STAC, or just how you handle this with your college work and stuff?
So now that I'm a senior, I'm able to put more into STAC this semester than I was last semester.
Are you hoping after college to continue working with STAC, or are you kind of just gonna look for this opportunity with different kind of companies?
So I am working with STAC next year. I did sign for next year, so I'll be with them, and I'm going to be applying to grad school the next few months. I'm hoping that I stay with STAC, but also it just broadens my horizon to so much more, and just seeing how it goes.
Could you tell us a little bit about the organization itself?
Survive and Thrive Advocacy Center is a nonprofit based in Tallahassee, Florida. We assist victims and survivors of human trafficking. We just help them get back on their feet. We give them counseling, housing. We help them get jobs. Stack, actually, it's our 10th anniversary in February. Robin basically just sat down with 10 women and she was like, this is what I want to do. Can you help me make it happen? We're just going up and up and up, and you can see like in all of our data and our statistics, it just keeps getting bigger. Basically anything that they need to transition to normal life again is what we do. And we still work with our survivors and all of our clients. So we have survive and thrive. So we want them to thrive as much as possible.
We're wondering how do victims come in contact with your organization?
In every which way you can imagine, we have gotten clients.
Oh my God.
Sometimes we'll get calls from the human trafficking hotline. They direct them to us. Same with International Rescue Committee. Because of our trainings, we say the eyes don't see what the brain doesn't know.
Okay.
That's amazing. What would you say are some of those things to notice and to be aware of your situation?
And something that's so hard about that is that human trafficking takes many forms. So sometimes you'll see one thing, but it doesn't guarantee the other. There's a lot of gray area within that, but you can notice someone working really long hours, not being compensated for their work, they're being sexually exploited. Some is social media recruitment, drugs too. In sex work specifically, you'll see a lot of violence, branding. But those are like the main things. But again, like you really never know. And it can happen to anyone. But it's also like emotional and there's a lot of grooming involved. Someone who is trying to build a relationship with you and then they manipulate you. It's a very slow process. Like they know your vulnerabilities and they know where to press the buttons.
And would you say that like our generation's use and access to social media has kind of like worsened that problem because you're in contact with so many other people?
Definitely. And also with like the scams and stuff that we see now, that's not necessarily trafficking. So these explicit pictures, explicit conversations and private relationships are on the line. And that is a form of trafficking as well.
Could you give us like a very like broad overall like definition of what human trafficking is?
Human trafficking is like modern day slavery. There's so many different forms of trafficking.
Right.
That's why it's complicated, but it's someone has a debt that has to be paid to someone else. They are being exploited. They are not being treated well at all in their job. It's basically just exploitation at its finest for financial gain. Yeah. So it is exploiting someone for your financial gain or benefit. Almost always money is involved in human trafficking in one way or another. Oh, and a great example I have is like a pimp and a hooker. The pimp is trafficking the hooker. Like the hooker's being exposed to a lot of different illnesses and STDs, all of that. They might be pregnant. They're not being paid. Their body is being used. It's just a overall like very degrading and like very long process. In my blog, I wrote about how a lot of college students are broke, like myself. Like we don't have any money. So we're looking for quick money, quick jobs.
Right.
There are so many LinkedIn scams and so many companies that will take advantage of that. And that is what you need to look out for. I almost always tell people, if it's too good to be true, it is.
Would you say that like those like hiring scams or like things that get people like that kind of thing, like a big offer, and then it turns out it's just, a horrible situation that they come into?
Yeah, like it can be really scary. They feel stuck.
Right.
And another example I have, and this was more recent, we had a case of a man bailing women out of prison and trafficking them.
Wow.
Oh. So that is a more severe case, but prisoners specifically are some of the most vulnerable people in our population. They were away for so long. They need to be reintroduced into society. For that guy to just say, you know what? You're out of jail. I'm going to traffic you and make your life a million times worse.
Yeah.
It really makes me sick to my stomach.
So when you find like people in these situations, what does Stack do to like help get them out of the situation?
When someone's in a current trafficking situation, we almost don't intervene because it can be worse for the victim. So we give them hotel vouchers, Uber vouchers. We pay for their car payments, their cell phone, help them get jobs, all of that kind of kind
And
of.
would you say victims are, for the most part, have they been like financially abused and like been left with nothing like on the okay, yeah.
Yeah. And we actually had a meeting a couple months ago about the Debt Relief Act, and that would allow them to get their debt cleared so they can start over. They can get a house, they can get a car.
Mm-hmm. In that kind of light of being able to help the people and notice how they're struggling, what are some ways that you would suggest that people are able to support these victims, or even just advice that you could give to these people who have suffered through these experiences?
So I think the biggest thing is showing support and that you educated yourself on the subject. And there are so many free resources out there, including Stack. We have them all over our website, and I can't stress enough to watch our webinars because it covers a million different subjects within the topic of human trafficking. They're like a lot more complex, and you need like actual examples to really understand it. And that's like the biggest thing for me, because when you have all of these examples, you begin to notice it a little bit more. If you wanted to help someone, I would just put them in touch with resources and make sure that they're not alone and that there is help and people do believe them and that there is a way out.
How do you think that technology has impacted human trafficking positively and negatively?
Positively, we have social media, and it's a great way to spread the word. It's not like you have to pick up a book, like you just have Google.
Do you think like young people have a tendency towards like looking for awareness, and like rather than Googling, like if they see it on social media, they'll be more likely to kind of interact?
I think that most things that I started learning were off social media. Like,
right.
Just you'll see, like an impact post, and you're like, oh, I never knew that. And then I go and Google and I do more research from that, because there are so many things, again, that you have no idea exist. Like, you could think that you know everything, and there's still like a million more things that you don't know.
Right.
So that's why I think social media is so important. But on the negative side, there are so many misconceptions and myths about trafficking that harm victims of human trafficking completely. But one of them is that you were kidnapped. That's not true.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily true. That's harmful. When you see, like, a lot of fear mongering is really harmful because it's just not true. And it's also harmful to people who aren't victims, because then you're living in fear all the time that this is going to happen to you, which isn't true. With social media, again, everyone has access to you. Like, there's no privacy. And that's where some of the issue comes in. And if you aren't using online smarts or whatever you want to call it, you can get yourself into really fishy situations.
Right, yeah.
But a misconception is that it's bringing people over the border. So, like, people are like, oh, that only happens in Texas or New Mexico, Arizona, like those states. No, it's actually all over the United States. It could be anyone. But if you have, like, labor workers, they are working 14, 15-hour days in the blazing hot sun. They're not given health insurance. They're not being paid. They're making probably $2 an hour. They aren't sleeping. They have nowhere to shower. They have nothing to eat. But yet they still have to work, because they might be promised that if they work for however long it is, their family can come to America and they can get them a green card.
Right. So would you say that, like, migrants and immigrants are especially targets of human trafficking?
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that they are, but again, like, you can't generalize, and you can't, like, say one person is more vulnerable than the other. I would say that almost everyone is equally vulnerable to trafficking, because it is so complicated, and there's so many levels to it. It could be very not that bad, or it can be super severe and a huge ring that, like, is impossible to break. And it's, again, like, I'm still learning just as much as you guys are, like, and it's so complicated, and I'm probably being very confusing, because it is confusing, and I confuse myself, like, talking about it.
Yeah.
And I only have, like, very few examples that I can come up with that really, like, make sense.
Well, I know I personally didn't know much about this issue, and just, like, having this conversation, like, I'm realizing, like, how much I didn't know, and how, like, complicated, and how, like, it's not exactly what it seems. Like, when I thought of human trafficking, like, I don't know, I immediately go to, like, a sweatshop or something like that. Like,
that is trafficking. That is a good example of trafficking, for sure.
But I feel like there's like so many layers to it that I don't really recognize. Yeah.
It can be on, like, such a small scale or such a large scale, and that's where there are so many gray areas and one think it's trafficking and then it's not, or it could be, or you're like, no, that's not trafficking and it actually is, because it's like an onion, and like you peel every single layer and you never get to the center because like it's just so deep, you know.
Thank you so much for like having this talk with us.
Yeah,
this is amazing.
Yeah, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm so glad that you guys reached out to us, and I would love to invite you guys to our webinar that we're having on January 17th. It's at 1 p.m. So I'm not sure if you guys can go because you might be in school, but it is recorded.
Yeah.
And we are launching our survivor-oriented website because our website, we noticed that our Get Help button was not receiving any traction. And that's because it's more donor-focused. Like, we're asking for money to help survivors. Well, this website, it's called Thrive Space, is made by survivors for survivors of trafficking, where it's no money is being asked for. It's simply just resources, contact, and all of that. And it's going to be amazing. And I can email you guys.
Yes, that's awesome.
We would love that.
Yes,
It's
thank you.
completely free. All of our resources are free. So, it was really exciting talking to you guys. And I'm really happy for you guys, too. Like, this is amazing. And I just feel like even though we can't really predict where trafficking is going, if it's going to get better, if it's going to get worse, I think that we're taking the right, like, a step in the right direction. And especially because you guys are just, you know, high school students, it says a lot. Like, I had no idea what it was until my junior year of college. So there's like that huge gap, and we need to close it. So good job.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you
so much for meeting with us today.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Bye. Thank you.